Hey, welcome back. About 20 after 7, and we hit a hot topic here this morning. The phones are lit up. Basically, what we've been talking about, if you're just joining us, is, you need a license to drive. You need a license to get married. You even need a license to have a pet. But should you have a license to be a parent? We've got a lot of people that have been pro and con on this, and we've got a lot of people on the line. So the number is 210-823-7864, 210-823-7864. We got a few people ahead of you, but I want to get your opinion. Should you have to have a license to be a parent?
Sound a little extreme? Make you feel government might be taking too much control of our lives? Stop thinking about yourself for a second and think about these poor children.
Now to that heart-wrenching story out of Harrison Township, a 19-month-old just clinging to life tonight. The toddler so badly hurt, doctors considers his injuries life-threatening. A
4-year-old boy was hospitalized with severe injuries. We told you there was an investigation into what happened, and tonight, 2 people are behind bars facing child abuse charges.
Shocking video posted on Facebook showing 2 women smoking pot in front of a toddler.
There is no debating the fact there is a lot of bad parenting in this country, and the damage it costs us as a society is staggering.
If we look at this objectively, we license everything that we do that affects other people, even things that affect ourselves if it has to do with personal safety. If we were able in this nation to ensure that every child had an opportunity to succeed in life through having parents who were able to care for that child, our economy would flourish, our taxes would drop immensely. So this simple fact is one that should motivate people if properly presented to the public.
I think we have a parenting problem in this country.
I came from an era where the parents were both involved, a mother and a father. The baby boomers, if you will, they were both, my mother was at home while my father worked. It's shifted over the years, and both parents have to work, and sometimes the kids have to raise themselves.
Not everyone should be a parent, because not everyone has the instincts or the raising to be a parent. They think, okay, not everyone's a mother, not everyone's a father. They just think when you have a child, then that's it. It's not it. It's a lifelong commitment. I have 2 grown sons, and they're still my children.
But this whole idea of the relationship between the parent and the child is one that people are very reluctant to talk about and face. In truth, children are viewed as the property of their parents to do with as they wish.
Like a scale 1 to 10, I'm like -5, right? I'm like, I can't believe they just gave me my son and they're gonna let me take him home, right? I mean, I was petrified that first day.
Why would they just be letting us leave with this human being and we don't have to check at least go through some kind of inventory to show them that we're gonna do a good job with this?
We live in a culture in which I don't have the right to do anything I please. There are limits on my behavior. And we need to recognize that even though I may be capable of conceiving a baby, I may not be able to be a competent father, or in the case of a girl or woman, a competent mother. And every newborn baby in our society deserves a competent mother to start with, and to some degree, a competent father.
What does a good parent mean to you? Because what's a good parent to me is different than someone else. To somebody else, a good parent is giving the kid whatever they want. I think that's a cruddy parent. A good parent is someone that disciplines, that doesn't give in, that teaches them responsibility, that doesn't teach them this apathetic, hey, I am entitled.
Who doesn't want the perfect life with a happy mom and dad, some kids, a pet, a white picket fence out front? Here's the cold reality. Half of all children born will experience the breakup of their family. More than 5 million children have had at least one parent spend time in jail. Almost 700,000 children are being abused. Over 400,000 will end up in foster care. Close to 2 million young people will be incarcerated. 575,000 teens will attempt suicide. 4,600 young people ages 10 to 24 will commit suicide. The annual cost of child abuse and neglect in this country is $124 billion. And as we see far too often in the news, there is no shortage of parenting horror stories.
When I was with my biological family, both my biological parents and their extended family abused and neglected me and my siblings. They had drug abuse problems, alcohol problems. Whenever I was with my biological father was when the abuse, like the actual physical abuse, would happen the most. There'd be beating, there'd be punching. At the time, I didn't understand that it was wrong because I just always grew up with it, and I always expected that other kids at school were going through the same things, and it wasn't until someone spoke out and got me removed from the family that I was kind of blown away by the extent of the things that were allowed to happen for such an extended period of time. I remember incidents where I was a kid and I was in my room and I was starving. I was so hungry, and I know my dad was in the house, but I couldn't get the food because I get in trouble. So I remember walking to my father's room, opening the door, and he's having sexual relationships with a woman. He sees me, catches me, and I remember getting so freaked out. I run back to my room, lock the door. He breaks the door open and starts beating me. And all I wanted to do was ask for food.
I was fortunate enough to have a mother and a father who both had mothers and fathers. So I was heavily layered with common sense and love.
Some people who are like a grade older than me, seniors who are like 16 or 17, have become pregnant, but I think that's kind of irresponsible.
A phone rang at 1:30 in the morning in July of 2012. And I answered the phone. Phone at 1:30 in the morning, never a good sign. And it was identified herself as a Child Protective Services caseworker. She said, Mr. Eisenberg, this is Kanasha Stebbins with Child Protective Services. Can you come pick up your granddaughter? She was living in an apartment with my son and his girlfriend at the time in a really ratty apartment complex, which was just awful. We got there about maybe 2 a.m. and there were 2 police officers standing on the second floor balcony right outside the apartment. And we met the caseworker, and the officer said, "You don't want to go in there." And he explained that the apartment was just a wreck. It was covered with feces on the floor, there was blood on the walls.
Ron and Gina ended up adopting Reagan. Less than a year later, they got another phone call.
There's like, people say that they remember certain things in their life. It's the day your child was born. I could tell you everything about the day I got Reagan and the day I got the twins.
Ron's son and his girlfriend were pregnant again, this time with twins. They went from a family of 2 to a family of 5 in less than a year.
We have a parenting problem in this country.
You do need a lot of skills. And as we always said, kids do not come with instructions, so we parents do the best we can.
I know that parenting is the most important job in the world, but I do not know how I would have proved myself before having a baby that I'm capable of taking care of a baby.
We are their intermediary caregivers while their parents get their lives together in hopes of getting their children back, but it doesn't always work out that way. The damage starts in utero, and there's scientific proof of that. You and I, as parents, did damage to our children in utero, and we didn't even know that we were doing it. And we weren't drug addicts, alcoholics. But things that are said, stress, tension, that all affects an unborn child. And it's a proven fact. 90% of our foster babies that we've had in 19 years have been drug babies. It's horrendous for them. Yes, you get tired, you get frustrated, but it is horrendous for them. In a hospital, a drug baby is rated 1 through 20. 1 through 10, they get nothing to help them in their withdrawal. except a pacifier, lots of holding, lots of rocking, and lots of swaddling, which is a very tight wrap that you do on the baby so that they feel secure. No child should have to do that. And in my opinion, if a child is born positive for drugs at birth, the mother should be arrested right then and there. And I've said that for 19 years. But again, mom's got lots of rights. And yes, the baby has some rights, but mom has lots of rights. If you're gonna have a baby, then get off your drugs, get off your alcohol, get off your cigarettes, have your baby. That baby has the right to make its own choices when it's old enough to smoke, drink, or take drugs. You've got no right putting that into your innocent child's body.
Unfortunately, regrettably, the body matures before the mind does, and the mind is needed to be a good parent. And a lot of people are parents before they're ready to, and that's unfortunate. And the worst part of it is the children suffer from that, unfortunately.
I had a single mom of 7 kids, and she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't have these parenting classes available to her, and it was so much more of a struggle and a focus on means and how to survive and clothing and fed and shelter that parenting was just not an importance.
I was clean for 6 years before I had my daughter. Me and my husband had been clean for 6 years, and then I got addicted to meth. A family member came one day, and I walked in on them and I was like, hey, you know, my life's not going well, let me try it a little bit.
Oh, that was terrifying. It was, to me, it was the end of the world. I didn't want to lose my family, it's overall my kids. I think there's maybe something I could have worked out with my wife if we did have to go our separate ways, but the whole point of losing my children it was too overwhelming.
If you don't get your act together, you don't become clean and sober, you don't get to work, you don't do the right thing, so to speak, you're going to lose your kid. And I got people in this community who's going to take care of this kid. It's a powerful motivator for these parents that come into my court.
Either you're going to choose your wife or you're going to choose to continue to do drug court and try to get your kids back. I was like, how can you tell him, somebody I've been married to for 6 years, to choose between me or the sober life? Of course he's going to choose me. He's not going to pick you. But my husband actually went along with her and said, no, if you don't do what you have to do, I'm going to try to get the children back because I love the kids that much to get them back.
I gave up on everything else in my life. Growing up, I gave up on a lot of stuff, education-wise, just being a boy. I gave up a lot and tried to grow up too fast, and I got tired of it. When I met her, Crystal, with the 2 oldest ones, I told myself, I'm not going to give up. There's no more giving up. Giving up is for quitters. I'm not going to quit.
Our focus is child safety. So what I can confidently say to you is that when my investigators go into a home, that is their primary first priority, is to ensure that that child is safe. And they go out into the home and they interview the children, they interview the parents, they have to interview medical professionals, they have to interview collaterals. It's not just as simple as going in and talking to the parents. We try to get a good overall assessment of what has been happening, what's currently happening, and most importantly, what will happen in terms of if we don't do anything and or whether or not we intervene. So we try to gather all perspective, past, present, and future.
It's chaos. If you can imagine being ripped from everything that you know, everything that you love, regardless of the situation, regardless of what's been done to you, this is still your family. And so being torn from that has to be traumatic, has to be full of anxiety filling. And so our role here at the Children's Shelter is to try to fill some of those gaps, to provide protection, provide safety, but certainly understanding that when this child is coming in, they're coming in confused, they're coming in frightened, they're coming in just questioning what's happening to them.
If it's possible to make this any worse, consider this. By the time Child Protective Services or the police come in and take a child out of a house, it's very likely someone knew what was going on but didn't do anything about it.
Absolutely. These things don't happen in isolation, and it usually isn't a one-time occurrence. These sorts of things are systemic, and what's happened to the parents probably, or what the parents are doing to the children, has probably happened to them, and so this is all that they know. And usually, when it comes to a point where it gains someone's attention, it's because it's gotten to the tipping point or the boiling point, and someone is really now concerned for the health of this child. And so there has been years of trauma and abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, and or emotional.
You know, it's just never easy. I did it for 5 years as a caseworker, and there was never, every time I thought I had seen one situation that I thought was really bad, another one would come and top it off, and it's just so heartbreaking. Those kids will cling onto you as if they've known you for 10 years and you just met them. And when you take them from their home, no matter what their home life is like, especially if they're older children, verbal children, they still cry, they still want their parents, and so even as you're taking them to the shelter to place them for the night, many nights I cried. I mean, that's what a lot of our workers do. And it's just really tough. That's the truth. It's not easy. And they literally, when you leave them at the shelter or in the foster home, even though they've only known you for like 2 hours, it's like they've known you forever, and they cling on to you as the only person that they know, and that's tough. And I think sometimes people have this fantasy that it's a simple thing to do, that that's kind of our job, is to protect kids and take them out of situations. But I can guarantee you that it's never a simple decision. It's something that you never forget. I can literally drive down streets and I can literally say, like, this was about 15 years ago, and I can say, I remember having to remove some kids from there, or I remember I had to take this person, and I don't forget names, I don't forget parents. It's very impactful, and we take it so serious when we have to remove a child from their home.
Undermanned cities and states are working harder to punish the bad parents. But again, this is after kids have been badly victimized.
Look at the numbers. We just don't have enough manpower. If you look at our statistics, we're sending these animals to prison. And I call them animals, and I don't care if people get offended by that. If someone acts like an animal, they're an animal. And I think abusing a child, sexually abusing a child, that's animalistic behavior, because you have no moral compass. You're just reacting to whatever flesh experience or drive that you have. If someone kills someone, we call them a what? A killer, and no one gets offended by that. So these are animals, and we treat them like that. We get big sentences. We just got 4 life sentences on this individual that sexually assaulted his 6-year-old daughter, biological, and our 7-year-old daughter and 6-year-old special needs son. Stacked 4 life sentences.
We know about ageism. Ageism is prejudice and discrimination based on age against the elderly. The elderly are recognized as being less able and perhaps even helpless. And so we recognize that people are prejudiced against the aged because they're a bother and a burden. I speak of juvenile ageism because the most vulnerable people in our society are newborn babies and young children. And just as we ignore the needs of the elderly, we really do ignore the needs of young children. And we are not intervening enough when problems are detected, and we certainly are doing very little to prevent those problems in the first place.
Well, and that's where I can tell you that's where the system is lacking. That's called prevention. And basically the commitment and the money necessary for prevention programs. Programs that would teach these parents, programs that would help these parents before they kind of fall in the hole, so to speak, and come into our child protective service system because they've totally screwed it up. So you're right. What we need is better and more enhanced prevention programs that teach these parents how to be good parents.
In order to become an American citizen, you need to pass a test to show that you know American history. In many cases, the new citizens know more about this country than a lot of us that were born here. The same is true for parents who have been forced to take education classes to either keep their children or become foster parents.
It's rigorous training and also monitoring. We do a rigorous monitoring and evaluation of our parents. We work with them very closely. We provide training that goes above and beyond minimum standards. We want to make sure that our foster families have the tools and resources that they need to help with the children, help the children who are entering their home, help them heal from the trauma that they've experienced. And so we give them those tools and those resources so that they can help mitigate some of those challenges and behaviors that might result from the trauma that they've experienced.
In one sense, ensuring that every child has the opportunity to become a productive citizen seems like a no-brainer. Should be easy. In reality, it's almost an impossible challenge unless we take child abuse and neglect seriously, and unless we take our international standing seriously, and unless we are really concerned about our economy and the future leadership of the United States of America and the world, we need to recognize that other nations have more common sense than we do, that other nations are more involved in what we call the primary prevention of child abuse and neglect than we are.
One thing that is painfully obvious, many of the people getting the job of parent clearly aren't qualified, and it would seem requiring them to get a license to do this would be a no-brainer. We already need a license to drive a car, hunt, fish, run a business.
Personally, I think there should not be a license to be a parent, no.
I wouldn't agree with a license as such. I think it should be somebody's responsibility, whether that's government, state, whatever, that you should be trained in how to raise children, okay? But a license, that's too far for me.
I think that's kind of harsh. Would I personally want to have a license? I think there should be an IQ test to see if you're smart enough to have kids, but no, I don't think a license would prove anything one way or the other.
Because those are privileges, not rights. You can't mix the two between a privilege and a right. A right is, most people, a lot of cases, and you can talk to a constitutional scholar, to procreate, right? To have a relation with somebody and procreate.
The 14th Amendment encompasses the due process clause. If you have a constitutional right to do something, we cannot require the government to condition the exercise of that constitutional right upon the granting of a license. So just as a matter of how constitutional law works, if you have a constitutional right, you can't be required to obtain a license before exercising that right.
If we can't require parents to have a license, at least we can try to tip the scale in favor of the child's rights, because the way most laws stand right now, parents have a lot of room to make mistakes.
If you're a parent, you have a constitutional right to be the parent of your child. And before that constitutional right can be taken from you, there must be a strong showing by the state that you are unfit to be a parent. What that does is that creates a difficulty and a playing field that is not level. And so based on that, much of your assertion is accurate in this sense. As between a parent and a child, parents are allowed to fail in some ways their children, their child or children, without any consequences whatsoever. Now, if a parent physically abuses a child, the state certainly can come in and take the child either permanently or temporarily. Sometimes, because we again have this legal thumb on the scale in favor of parents, parents may physically harm children in ways that one might think should lead to the end of the relationship between parent and child, but the state may say, well, yeah, that was a bad thing to do, but the parent really didn't know, and now the parent says he or she's rehabilitated, and I've looked at the evidence and I've decided that I'm going to allow parent and child to reunite.
And this may be the reason we have many of the problems we do. There is a system in place in each state to help children, but help often comes after the damage has already been done.
When Child Protective Services become involved, in fact, intervention really does not take place unless there is evidence of damage to children from neglect and abuse. So if we cast this in a public health model, we talk about primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. Primary prevention is preventing a disease from happening, vaccination. Secondary prevention is treating a disease. So with antibiotics, we treat pneumonia. Tertiary prevention is reducing the disability that arises from an injury or from a disease. And we need to apply the health principle to children and to families, as a matter of fact. We need to recognize that every child has a basic constitutional right to thrive in our society. And this is stated directly in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, whereby we all have the right to the pursuit of happiness.
Rather than throw up your arms and say there's nothing we can do, we need to break it down and start working on things we can actually fix.
I think it's because we've taken moral absolutes out of our school. You can't, when I go speak to people, I talk about morality, I talk about right and wrong, and I invoke the name of God, and I don't push it on them, but I get my principles and my philosophy from somewhere. Like here locally, some of the school districts have said, you know what, instead of teaching abstinence for sex, we'll teach them how to use condoms because they're going to do it anyway. So we've thrown in the towel. Because morally, don't tell me that I can't have sex at 14 years old or 12 years old. Don't tell my kid what to do. Keep your moral principles out of my life. My reality is not your reality. So that logic is saying this. So let's take that further. I look for consistency. And it was accepted in the United States up until 1962. And you can look at, since you're talking about data, look at the empirical data since 1962. From violent crimes to single parent, to teenage pregnancies, to divorce rates, to SAT scores. Look at it. Just look at it and what's acceptable now, because we have no absolute right and wrong. We just have all these sound bites. We're a sound bite society. It drives me insane.
We see the statistics. We see the cycle. Children who come into our emergency shelter, if we get the opportunity to work with their families and start doing work with their parents, the stories start coming out. They were abused as children, and you know, as a result of that, they didn't do well in school. They dropped out or didn't get good paying jobs, and so the cycle continues. And you see that with the children, and so it does end up costing society and our taxpayers.
Like anything, you can go through life and you can muddle your way through it, or you can seek help from professionals so that you're making informed decisions and doing the right thing.
While we don't want to get to a point where the government tells us who can have children and who can't, it is possible to identify people who are at risk for problems and try to help them before their children end up being the victims.
Being a parent means you have the legal and physical custody of a child. And our fundamental principle is this, that if a person is under the legal and physical custody of somebody else, like a minor, they cannot have the physical and legal custody of another human being. And a baby is a human being.
A big challenge is breaking that cycle of bad parenting being passed down from generation to generation.
We have parents who never learned how to be parents because their parents never knew how to be good parents.
And so in many European countries, if a teenage girl becomes pregnant and has a baby, obviously the baby would be placed for adoption because it's recognized in that particular society that this is not to the advantage of the girl, and it's certainly not to the advantage of the baby. And those nations don't provide special education, special services, and so on for girls who have babies.
We have children having children, and that's problematic. Sometimes the light bulb goes off, sometimes people get it, and that's why I truly believe in the goodness of people. I think most people have a good heart, they have a nurturing heart, but they've been traumatized, they've been hurt, they've been sexually abused or child abuse while they were children. And so that cycle of child abuse, sexual abuse, these keeps coming on till we break it. And that's what we try to do at our drug court. Break the cycle of child abuse.
How to break those chains, that cycle that just kept on replaying itself in my family. So I knew I had to change it, not only myself, but that cycle. And that was the biggest success that I see when I actually replaying it.
The main problem I see is we're afraid to tell the children about the future and what life's like. We don't want them to be scared. We want them all to have awards and want them all to have medals and want them all to think life is all happy and great and it's always going to go your way. And I feel we're hiding the truth from them. Life's not always going to go your way.
With all the challenges parents face, one thing that isn't getting passed on to most kids is learning the most important lessons they need to succeed in life. Every young person needs to learn life skills, and the best place to teach it is in school.
Here in Charleston County, our superintendent so believes in the importance of life skills instruction that she has brought it to every one of our middle schools and high schools, and with tremendous results. In fact, one of our schools was on the failing list for years, and this past year it went from failing to A, F to A. And that school principal says life skills instruction was a major part of her education reform plan.
Some kids do learn them from home, from their parents, but a lot of kids these days aren't learning it from their parents because either their parents didn't learn them themselves or their parents just don't have the time to teach their kids.
The life skills lessons are interactive between the teachers and the class. The students learn valuable lessons they'll carry with them for the rest of their lives. And for the teachers, it's a chance to get to know more about their students and what's going on in their lives.
Which one of these definitions tells you what stress is to you? Think about it for a moment. And then we're going to take a minute and I want you to highlight or circle some words that relate to stress in those definitions, okay? What was the stressor? Shiloh.
The stressor was the test.
Yeah, we've committed that time at Arbisdale High School for 6 years now, and that time is essential for our students to build those skills. Once they've got those skills, we see not only their ability to perform in their math, English, science, social studies classes socially, but we also see them develop more of those perseverance type skills.
Frank has to go home. It's time for y'all to do your chores.
But Mom, we're not done yet, Mom.
Well, she has to do the dishes and you have to clean your room.
I'll clean it later, Mom.
You need to clean it now.
You're embarrassing me in front of Frank, Mom. We always do this.
Let's look at this one at the top. Someone put this one in all caps, okay? And they said, parents. Why do parents stress you out?
They don't understand how we have to deal with school and we have to come home and they expect us to like clean our rooms and do things around the house, and you know, it's just like awesome, like it's a lot for us, you know, and that's why it's just so much stress for us to deal with like so many things, especially now that we're gonna graduate.
Their expectations that they have for you can stress you out because you want to please them, but it just keeps going on and you want to do everything you can to actually please them.
Well, I feel as though parents, because they want the best for you, just because since they're older, they've been through what we've been through. So for example, my parents, they went to college, but neither of them finished college because they had my older sister and they couldn't manage time. So I feel as though they stress us out because they want us to be better than what they did. They want us to do better than what they did.
Do you think you'll be that way as a parent?
I mean, yeah, because of course, you always want your kids to do better than you.
Learning life skills puts these young people on a path to success, and they're better able to understand the kind of person and eventually parent that they want to be.
I believe a parent should be understanding, because especially if they've been through what we're going through as a teenager, I feel like they need to be more understanding than demanding, because they expect just so much of us, and we just sometimes can't be that perfect child even though they want us to be.
We live, it's like a different time now. We have like social media, we got Facebook, we got Twitter, we got Snapchat, we got Instagram, and so like a parent, they should always be like understanding and always talk to their child, because like you never know what's going on in your child's life. Especially if like they're always in their room upstairs or like got the door closed stuff. They should always take time and like spend time with their kids, because you never know, your child might be getting bullied on social media, which stresses them out a lot. And then like one of the number one causes of stress, or suicide, is because of stress.
Year after year, studies show when we teach life skills to our children, graduation rates increase. Incidences of violence, bullying, and substance abuse decrease, and the employability of our kids improves dramatically. But today there are only about 1,000 schools formally teaching life skills to our children, and 1,000 is less than 1% of all of our schools.
We need to move from a Band-Aid society where we have to rescue damaged children to one where we eliminate many of the problems up front. That's what they're doing at Avance San Antonio.
Avance has been in this community for over 43 years. And Avance is about the prevention of child abuse and neglect in our community. It's about giving families in the community, in our communities in San Antonio, the opportunity to become what we say more effective parents by gaining knowledge of parenting.
Avance gets its parents through word of mouth and by going door to door in the community, letting people know they're here to help.
It's not a Band-Aid approach. Our program is a 9-month program. And we start we have lessons, weekly lessons on parent education that deal with the 4 areas of development of children: the cognitive, the physical, the emotional, the social emotional of children.
My 2 older sisters, they graduated from the program, and they told me I should try it. And I had a 10-month-old, and I was pregnant with my second child. My parents, there was never praise, there was never hugs, and they couldn't praise one child because they didn't want the other child to feel bad. So then to even it out, there was no praise. And there was really no expectations of what they wanted us to really accomplish. This program helped me see is that if I better myself, then the expectations for my children are be higher, and they will follow me. If I do it, they'll do it. And so that's why I push myself to keep going for my children.
I was losing my patience very easily with my son. I did not understand why he behaved in a certain way. So when I was invited to come to Avance, I learned in the parenting program that I was doing everything that I ever dreamed of doing right. I was doing it wrong. Many times we tend to be repeating the same mistakes our parents did with us when we were younger. So as a parent at Avance, I started changing my methods of discipline, my understanding what was my role as a parent, that I was supposed to be that guidance and to be guiding my son with love and respect and with patience. So Avance taught me and gave me those tools that I needed to know how to parent my child better. I don't know. I'll probably be not the greatest parent that I am, or have the wonderful relationship I have with my children. Or maybe I wouldn't have been married anymore. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I learned through the program. The importance of the family unit, the importance to have a father involved in your child's life that really make a big difference. A lot of the times people ask me, how do you know this program works? How do you know this program makes a difference, in our communities? And I can tell you that I am a product of Avance. I am very proud of what I stand for now, and as a parent and as a person, and being inspiration to other parents as well. So I know it works, because if it worked with me, it changed me, it can change anybody. And turn that person into the best person, that can make a difference in our community.
The way that I was raised, I wasn't nurtured, and I didn't have the right upbringing to know what to do with my kid, I guess.
I received a brochure, and I told my husband, let's go. I don't have idea what it's about. We don't know anybody here. We don't know anything about here. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, and I can't even name all the ways that it's helped me be a better parent.
Every parent can benefit from learning how to be better at their job. If you're a parent in Minnesota, there is an early childhood family education program available for all families with children between the ages of birth to entering kindergarten.
Early childhood family education began in the 70s. There was a group of legislators and educators that got together and wanted to focus on the importance of parent education. And they realized that parents are their children's first teachers. So they developed a program that included early childhood and parent education, a multi-generational program.
But when you say to Julie that it's time to go and you need to give Grandma a kiss, and Julie doesn't necessarily want to kiss Grandma goodbye today, I think there's two conversations that need to take place. The first is with your mom, and to say that today Julie doesn't want to kiss you, but she loves you, and perhaps there's another way that Julie can express affection today, because a kiss might come tomorrow. The other conversation is to have with Julie, that if today she doesn't feel like kissing Grandma goodbye, what are some other things that she can do to let Grandma know that she loves her? A parent should never feel alone. I don't know that there's any other area of human outreach that's more excluded than included than parents. We exclude parents. We ridicule parents. Go to a grocery store, go to aisle 5, the cereal aisle, and watch the number of people that walk by a parent who has a discouraged child in the aisle, and watch the number of people who frown at them.
I don't think there's enough credit for parents out in the world to understand how tough it is, and that there's a support network, and that you're not alone, and the behaviors that your child's going through or the frustrations you're having as a parent are very, very normal, and they give you tips and tools to help with that, and just to actually make it easier to have tools and techniques on how to handle some of the behaviors rather than maybe reverting to old ways. And it's a safety net, and it feels you're not alone.
First of all, I would encourage you not to label parents as bad. Parents aren't bad. Most parents that I've met are doing the best that they can. It's strategies that parents are lacking. It's knowledge. It's understanding of child development. And when those pieces are not in place, both for the parents and for the child, then parents struggle, and then children struggle as well. I've been in this field a very long time. I've met parents who have severely abused their children. They might be deemed a bad parent. Those parents loved their children. They simply did not know how to express it.
Our program not only provides education for families, it also provides community and support. We believe parents have a lot of good answers, and by having a team, a support team, and providing information, that they can become better parents.
I think it makes a huge difference. I think it makes a huge difference in that it doesn't allow certain people to fall through the cracks. I'm originally from North Dakota, for example, where they don't have that program, and there is a lot of poverty, and those kids don't get the help that they need early on, and so they start way behind when they end up being in school.
I can barely put it in words what it's done for me. It's done a lot. I can honestly say by coming here, it helped me be not just a good dad, or better dad, better husband, better person, better man. Not just what the program offer to parents or to say fathers, either mothers, but just what the other classmates or the other mothers and fathers, what they bring to the program.
I don't know. It's a really good question. I mean, I think that it's maybe a funding issue. I figure it's about money. Because it can't be about the lack of results. I mean, what's happening here, people have all different beliefs. People are, have Republican, Democrat. I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter. Everyone who's here is a parent, and that means that you have things that you need, and I don't think that this country does a very good job of supporting parents.
Key to it is to find one legislator who's really committed and get them involved and started. That's what we did in this school district. We found one legislator, and they really cared about parent education, and they became an advocate, and it really helped.
The parents that are involved in this program, they go on to our school district, and they're the active, engaged parents. They're the parents running the PTO, running the fundraisers. They're the parents there for conferences. They are very involved with their children as their children grow up. And thank goodness they have a core group of support of other parents.
Ideally, all new parents would be getting some type of training to make them better at parenting. So how do we reach everyone else? In many cases, the people most in need of the help don't realize it.
I've given hundreds of parenting workshops, and the parents that show up are always the ones, unless it's mandatory, are always the ones who don't really need it, who are already really concerned about their kids and wanting to do the best for them. The ones who should be there, the ones that have the real troublemakers, like I said, if it's not mandatory, they're not showing up.
Helpline 211, this is Brittany.
There's a program in Florida that is available for parents when they have problems and concerns. It's called Help Me Grow. Parents can get connected with important resources for their children by picking up the phone and calling 211.
About 3 years ago, they decided that Help Me Grow was really a need here in Florida because we saw that there were so many children kind of falling through the cracks, not getting screening or not getting the services that they needed.
I was very frustrated. It took me a very long time to get this. Actually, not until I got in touch with Paula at Help Me Grow was she able to help me get some help. A lot of people were passing the buck. She just kept making phone calls and emailing people to make sure that we got it done because I kept getting referred to different people, where people would tell them that they had talked to me and had set it up, which they hadn't. So she just helped get it done so that we finally got into speech at elementary school here.
Sometimes parents feel like they don't know where to start. So having someone that's going to help provide that navigation is a relief because they've tried other avenues and haven't been successful. Or maybe they haven't tried anything yet because they weren't even sure where to start.
I think that society has put such a stigma on reaching out for help, whether it be that you're personally as an adult depressed or have a mental illness. For you to reach out to do that, it seems as though you're embarrassed or you have to be ashamed. So we see folks not really wanting to reach out, and then that problem carries over into their parenting. And likewise, I think that when people reach out for help with parenting, we take it upon ourselves to say, oh my gosh, my child's not talking. What have I done wrong? I must be a horrible parent. I'm just not going to say anything at all because I don't want anybody to know, or I don't want, the state to come take my kids away. So I think the stigma of our communities just doesn't have a sense of helpfulness like it does in some other countries, I think. And because of that, people are oftentimes scared to reach out and get the help that they probably should be getting. But we're not telling them how to parent. In most cases, we're just giving them advice on good things to do and connecting them with resources that will help their child.
If we ignore the problems we currently have with parenting, bad parenting isn't going to improve on its own.
Well, we know kids are going to smoke marijuana anyway, so why don't we teach them how to roll the joint,
Make sure they know the difference between hydro and synthetic marijuana, because synthetic marijuana is horrible. People don't understand that issue and can kill you. Let's just make sure they don't do synthetic marijuana, but they can do hydro and the other types of marijuana. Is that going to be our position too? I look for consistency. So we've thrown in the towel on moral issues, and then we want to complain later on when people don't act moral. To me, I mean, it's like you sow bad seed, you're going to reap a bad harvest. We need to be proactive and look at our foundation as a society, in my humble opinion.
The wonderful part about Avance is that everything we do is about prevention. I think for a lot of people, when they look at child abuse and neglect, they look at after the fact. Avance is about ensuring that we're able to provide the education, the knowledge, the support to parents before child abuse and neglect happens.
Well, that's where the community comes in. That's where the community, whether you're a teacher, a neighbor, a relative, you need to speak up, because children oftentimes don't have a voice. And if you hear, if you see something going on, then you need to speak up and you need to be able to say something to protect the children.
You have to understand that it's somebody else's life. It's somebody else's life, and everything you do to a point, that child is going to remember for the rest of their lives. That child is going to take that, they're going to grow with it, and as it said before, either continue the cycle, break it, or move on and become something great.
I need the community, I need everybody out there that truly cares for children and family to get involved. You don't have to be a foster parent. I mean, that takes a big commitment to get involved in the system. But you can be a CASA volunteer. You can go volunteer at your church.
The fastest way to start helping kids is to advocate for programs that won't turn into a political battle.
Unfortunately, we live in a political system that, unless there's a public will, and that's the reason why I call upon the community to step up. We need child advocates that will tell our public leaders, the people in San Antonio City Hall and county government, the people that are in Austin legislature, the people in Washington, D.C. and Congress. We need child advocates that are going to advocate for these successful programs, these programs that we're talking about. There can be programs, but there has to be public will. Our government, unfortunately, we live in a very divided, partisan government. Unless they hear that this is the will of the community, unfortunately, sometimes what we learn is children don't vote, and so sometimes children don't get services.
This is not a CPS issue. This is not just a parent issue. This is a whole community issue in terms of how we get involved, how we become that voice for that child.
How about requiring all parents to acknowledge that they are aware of the lifelong responsibility ahead of them before leaving the hospital?
I love the idea of a pledge. I don't think it would be binding, but I love the idea that a parent understand how crucial parenting is to society, how crucial parenting is to the child that they've brought into the world, and how crucial it is to the parents themselves to be people who have some purpose and to really have some value in the life that they're living, to understand that this is probably the most important thing that they will ever do. I love that idea.
As a parent, I'm always learning, and I'm always open to people giving me advice as long as it works.
Fixing anything starts with an idea. Whether it's teaching children life skills in school, a parent pledge, parenting classes, or tougher laws to protect kids and punish parents, the fact is we need to do something now. Let your local politicians know you want parenting classes in your state, and insist that middle school and high school students are taught life skills. Why should we settle for anything less? The cost of doing nothing is too high for all of us.
I look forward to the day when somebody calls me and tells me, you no longer have a job. We're done. There's no more kids getting hurt. There's no more abuse, neglect. There's none of that. So you get to go home and you're jobless. That is my dream one day.
The bottom line is we got to protect these children and we got to protect their families. I think that's our moral and ethical obligation as a true society.
It's hard to be a parent. Parenthood is the most rewarding job, and it is also the most difficult job. Period. And the thing is, you love them. I'm going to go back to that. I've never met a parent who didn't love their children. You love them with your core being, and they drive you crazy, and you don't sleep, and they throw food. And you love them, and you want what's best for them. But parents are human beings too, and without support, it's a hard job without support.